Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. As a boy growing up in Jamaica, I can recall the various Duppy stories and stories about rolling calves. A rolling calf is the spirit of a dead person who lived a wicked life and now roams the district. A Duppy, on the other hand, is much friendlier than a rolling calf, as a Duppy can be good or bad, but not evil. See the link on the description of this presentation to know more about the Jamaican culture. Men who told stories about rolling calves and Duppies were usually under the influence of JB, that is drunk or batty rum, they call it in Jamaica, or Jamaican overproof rum. These stories did not affect my consciousness, since I was blessed to have lived in a pastor's home. This would secure me from any dangers as it relates to the evil spirits. I honestly have never seen a Duppy or ghost or rolling calf, and I have no intentions of seeing one. One essential duty of the pastor is to preside over funerals, and most certainly, since I lived in a pastor's home, I had my fair share of attending many. Upon hearing about the passing of the church member, the pastor would visit the home to convey his condolences. Once the day of the funeral drew nearer, the grave digging would begin. This was a solemn time of reflection for the family. At this time, people would also gather at the deceased home to play cards, dominoes, drink white rum, and play games. However, on seeing the pastor, the rum bottles would disappear. For the lovers of JB, they just loved the rum. If you had a well filled with JB, it was bound to be finished by the end when these drunkards from the areas came. After all, when they were finished, they were indeed filled with the Spirit, not the Holy Spirit, that is. Let me say, I've never participated in any of these games because of the tragedy associated with the outcomes. For example, one song required you to pass around big stones which could damage your fingers. I can still recall a few words of this song. It goes like this. Go down Emmanuel Road, figure broke rock stone, broke them one by one, gallant boy. I hope I did well with that, right? On the night before the burial, people attended the dead yard, or the 9 nights, wake that is. The funeral service would be the next day, which was followed by the gathering of friends and families at the deceased home for a meal, which was called the repast. As I stated before, it was a solemn time. Concept of the wake, dead yard that is, came from African slaves who believed that it took 9 nights for the spirits of the Duppy to come home from Africa and find peace. The 9th night was the final night after the funeral service. But today in Jamaica, we celebrate only 7 days and 7 nights. Before leaving Jamaica, the 9-night celebration was quite reserved and relaxing. After leaving Jamaica in 2001, my days of attending funerals back home seemed to have been over. Notwithstanding, I began to hear about the transformation of funeral proceedings. For example, there is now an abundance of rum, loud music, and a live band at most grave diggings. Some graves are now draped inside with rich materials or paintings, and more rum was always needed for the job. The reality is, the 9-night ritual celebration is no longer a time to mourn or celebrate a loved one who is no longer suffering in this life. In many instances, these partygoers are unaware of who died, or in reality have no acquaintance with the deceased family members. The music genre of the night is always connected to gospel, dancehall, calypso, and reggae, all into one blend sometimes. I soon realized that most funerals are now held on Saturdays and not on Sundays. I also saw the emergence of dancehall fashion by many funeral goers. I also heard that vendors and other people would pay special attention to the obituary section of the newspaper to see the names of the deceased that would draw the most crowd at their funerals. The reality is, the larger the crowd would indicate the greater the buyer population would be. I was also surprised that funeral directors could now care for the deceased family members, hire a band for the wake, prepare the repast for the occasion. And the culture had changed where escalades, carriages, and custom designed caskets were now the order of the day. In March 1, I should have gone home to Jamaica for a funeral service. Because of the pandemic, I was restricted. Consequently, it was streamed via Zoom. There was no wake, the repast was restricted to family members, and I also suspect that greater change is coming to redefine Jamaica's burial culture again. Who knows? I guess it is too early to make that call. What are your thoughts? Notwithstanding, Zoom Dead Yard sessions are now in. Families can now attend virtual Dead Yard sessions. Let me end this blog with the footage I captured 2 years ago.